The Faceoff Sports Network presents the Fantasy Football Faceoff. Get ready for fantasy, DFS, and betting talk to get you in the game. If you want to win, you have to tune in. With Anthony Servino, Matt McKay, and Steve D'Angelo. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Face-Off.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back, Faceoff Sports Network. I'm your host, Anthony Servino. Follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. Follow the show at the FF Faceoff and at fffaceoff.com. We can be found at all the top social media and podcast platforms. Back with me, NFL Mock Draft Wednesday. Matt McKay at Matt_McKay_ on Twitter. Pete Terranova at Supernova. What's going on, guys?
Not much. Happy to be here. Excited for another pod.
Yeah, glad to be on with both you guys. Mock draft once again. Hate to spoil it, but that's what we're going to be doing. And I believe we're only about a week or under 2 weeks away from the actual 2024 NFL draft. So it's getting down to the nitty gritty. A lot of good stuff to get into. Hypotheticals. We got you covered here. So excited to be on as always. And Anthony, congrats on grinding through that procedure. You sound better day by day, man. So just keep it up.
Getting there. But this is our third mock draft. We're going to go through full first round with trades. I'm going to pull the draft board up so everybody out there can see it. Let's get it up. Yeah, okay, we can use this one. So who wants to start this time?
I believe I started last time, so either one of you gents want to go?
I can take it. It's probably the most boring spot to take because it's the most obvious. So I can start it off. All right. So yeah, the 101, Caleb Williams. Not really a ton needed to be said from a NFL perspective. He's really set up for success. I don't know the last time we've had a rookie quarterback that is in as good of a situation. For fantasy wise, even in redraft, I can see him and project him finishing somewhere between the 10 and the 15. So he might be a guy you want to look at later on, if you're punting the quarterback position in redraft. In Dynasty, if you're going to get him, you probably already know by now because you have the 101. So we'll take Caleb Williams here at the 101.
Matt, you can go number 2.
Yeah, number 2, we have a glaring need at quarterback in Washington. Sam Howell's out of there. I believe he went to Seattle. So with a new regime in Washington, who I believe Dan Quinn, head coach now, Anthony, is that correct?
Yeah. Cliff Kingsbury, OC.
Yeah. So knowing that it's going to look similar, we think, to what we saw in Arizona with Kingsbury and that air raid offense, I think the perfect quarterback to complement that will be the same quarterback that Pete took in our previous mock draft, for those of you that tuned into that. So here we're going to go Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner out of LSU. Could have gone Drake May. He's one of the other top consensus signal callers coming out of the draft. But I just think that Jaden Daniels fits the scheme perfectly. His mobility, his arm strength. He's got a good supporting cast of weapons in Washington, believe it or not. I think that this is the pick that Washington will make come draft night.
So I will be on the clock for pick number 3. And I know I moved off of this pick with New England, I believe, in our second mock draft. And I'm going to stay put here with the New England Patriots. I'm going to have them take quarterback. I'm going to throw a little curveball. I think New England, they like J.J. McCarthy. All the reports are positive about J.J. McCarthy. It seems like New England is in on J.J. McCarthy. which means Drake May would be the quarterback who falls, and this would obviously set up somebody's going to offer a ransom to one of these teams behind New England, but I'm going to have them take J.J. McCarthy because there are a lot of rumors, and I think they're legitimate rumors of J.J. McCarthy climbing up draft boards. And what I don't like here for J.J. McCarthy, if this did play out, is the fact that New England, they don't have a lot for him to work with, right? Like this isn't like Caleb Williams going to Chicago, where he has a loaded supporting cast. Like New England's rebuilding, and he's going to get really beat up unless New England uses Jacoby Brissett as a week 1 starter and kind of eases J.J. McCarthy into the NFL that way.
Yeah, I think JJ, it's going to be, for fantasy purposes, it's kind of going to stink if he goes there. I don't know how big of an immediate impact he can be, and he's definitely not set up for success like Caleb or Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, McCarthy has to be one of the biggest risers in the draft process. A lot of people like to bag on him due to the lack of passing volume at Michigan. But if you watch that offense, there wasn't a huge need for him to even make that type of volume and put it on film. And when he did make those throws, he beat Alabama. He won a natty. So I think that he's going to end up being pretty solid in the NFL. But I'm with Pete. Fantasy purposes, with the surrounding cast, this isn't going to be a guy that moves the needle too much for you.
Now, who is up with Arizona?
That would be myself.
Okay.
So Arizona is it's a tricky team and a tricky situation. I mean, if anybody, we talked about it last time, but if anybody knows that GM over there, he loves to talk trades. He loves to move up and down. We saw them do a lot of it last year. But I think the glaring need on this team is just offensive weapons. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. here, who's just kind of sitting, waiting in their lap. And I think I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. At the pick. I'm gonna stand put here. They have other first round picks. They don't have to move and accumulate more. I think from a fantasy standpoint, if you're a Trey McBride owner, this would be a great move because let's be honest, they don't have many weapons outside of McBride. Marvin Harrison will be able to stretch the field, will open up a lot more underneath for McBride, who can also be a vertical threat as well in the middle of the field. So I'm going to go Marvin Harrison here, and I love it for fantasy. I mean, between Kyler and having Harrison together, it'd be a pretty interesting duo for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. smash pick for the Cardinals. I'm with you here, Pete. I think that's what they should do 100%. Get a bona fide stud so Kyler can air the ball out a little bit with confidence.
Matt, you are up. Drake May is still on the board.
Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, the new regime. They got rid of most of their previous talent. Keenan Allen's gone. Eckler's gone. Mike Williams is gone. So it's a complete overhaul.
All the talent they only won one playoff game with.
Okay. Well, be that as it may, Harbaugh has been on the record talking about he wants to build in the trenches. We saw the blueprint for success at the collegiate level when he was the Michigan head coach in a Power 5 program, took him to the Natty. Now he's riding that momentum into the NFL for his second stint. It's not a sexy pick here. We could go Malik Neighbors, which would be really fun, but I'm going to go with the practical pick here. Shore up the right tackle position. Take Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Pair him up with Rashawn Slater, who's on the left tackle. Give Justin Herbert some bona fide protectors at either end of the offensive line.
So no trade. I thought one of you guys would have pulled off a trade with May still on the board. So now that it comes to me, we have the Giants. This is a team that could stay put. They can trade Drake May. This is a team that they have a lot of needs, right? Would it make sense for the Giants to take Drake May? or does it make more sense because somebody's going to come up and offer them something they cannot refuse for Drake May, whether it's the Raiders, whether it's, Denver, Minnesota. I think in the real draft, there's going to be some action here. I'm in a bind right now because I do see a world where the New York Giants, they will take quarterback. I also see a world where, hey, we can trade back because we have a boatload of needs on both sides of the football. We don't even have a run. I mean, Devin Singletary's our running back, or our number one wide receiver is what? Jalen Hyatt. Darren Waller might retire. So there's a lot of moving parts here for the Giants. And I think the most likely trade partner, and I'll go back to this is Minnesota, because they do have the 2 first-round picks, and I think they are willing to mortgage the future to come up for a quarterback, but not only any quarterback, Drake May, who some believe is the second best quarterback in this draft. So, yeah, I'm going to pull the trigger and use Minnesota to trade up.
There we go. And there is a correlation between Josh McCown, now on this staff for the Vikings, did spend time with Drake May while he was in high school down in North Carolina prior to going to UNC. So there's a little bit of a correlation there. This makes a lot of sense. As a Vikings fan, I would love to see this happen. Drake May, big dude, big guy. He basically just did everything for the offense down at UNC for Mac Brown. And yeah, he had a couple of weapons, but the defense didn't do him any favors. So I think this is a good pick. I like it. Like it a lot.
Yeah, I got no qualms. So I'm up here with the Titans in the 7th pick. I know a lot of Titans fans are screaming for offensive line help. They brought in Callahan, who is known for just being one of the better offensive line coaches and just coordinators in general in the NFL. But I'm not going to go offensive line here. I think when you have a coach like Callahan, he can elevate and find diamonds in the rough. And this is a deep offensive line class. I'd be comfortable saying that if they pass on tackle, they could still swing on an offensive lineman in the early second and get a really good player. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and take Malik Neighbors. Yeah, I'm going to take Malik Neighbors. I think they're trying to do what the Giants did in terms of Daniel Jones, but actually will set this guy up for success. I think they're going not all in with Will Levis, but the signing of, Tony Pollard and bringing in Calvin Ridley. I don't feel, we talked about it last week. I don't think that they are sold on Treylon Burks anymore at this point. And I think Malik Neighbors could step right in and play right away. Obviously top 10 pick. So I'm going to go with Neighbors here. And I think it'd be a really nice wrinkle in that offense and a nice weapon for Levis.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, Tennessee, huge overhaul this offseason, so why not?
Yeah, I don't hate it. It makes them 3, maybe 4 deep at wide receiver. I'm out on Burks. I was never really in on Burks to begin with. And I think he could potentially be on the move on draft day, whether they draft an early receiver or not. Matt, you're up.
Atlanta Falcons. Their pressing needs appear to be on the defensive side of the football. Raheem Morris is a defensive-minded head coach. So let's head on over to the defensive side. I mean, there's just endless options here. Well, to fill the need, whether you want the cornerback or the defensive end, I would say they're probably going to go D end based on I just think that in today's NFL, you need a guy that's going to generate pressure off the edge pretty badly. And while Atlanta does have a lot of depth at its positions, this is one of the ones that are a little bit weaker. So, like I said, there's so many edges to choose from here. I will go with the pipeline, Alabama Crimson Tide's Dallas Turner as the edge here to Atlanta.
I like it. You know, I do see Atlanta really attacking the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, this team really should be a juggernaut with Kirk Cousins and everything else they have.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so you're up, Anthony.
Hold on, I got to find Turner here. So I am up with Chicago. And I'm going to go with the boring pick. I think it is boring, but it's exciting for Bears fans. It's exciting for fantasy football, where Chicago is going to get Caleb Williams. And again, they're going to get the best receiver on the board. That is going to be Rome Odunze, unless anybody takes him a little bit earlier, which I don't see happening. Maybe, Tennessee, they like Odunze more than Malik Neighbors. And even if that did happen, that means Neighbors falls to Chicago. But Keenan Allen, this could be a short-term marriage in Chicago with his age, and they're really only too deep at wide receiver. They have Kmet, but they lost Mooney. I don't love anything else on that wide receiver depth chart outside of DJ Moore. So wide receiver makes all the sense in the world. You pair him up with Caleb Williams. They're both on rookie deals for the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. I mean, Keenan Allen, right? I mean, he's been banged up over his career. They didn't invest a ton into him. They didn't trade much to get him. I think Odunze is a really good insurance plan. And like you said, they'll get him for decently cheap and an affordable contract. So I like Odunze here.
I mean, yeah, Odunze. I had him going to the Jets, I believe, in our last mock. And yeah, this guy's going to be a top 15 pick, 100%. Yeah, great fit for Chicago.
Cool. All right, so I'm on the clock with the Jets. Yeah, I think the popular pick here, if you look at the sports books, Brock Bowers is the favorite, and I think it makes all the sense in the world for them. We talked about it last time too, but they shored up that offensive line. They've made some improvements, but they really they need weapons. I know Mike Williams is there, but we're still not really counting on that. It's a 1-year deal. And then on top of that too, the 3 receivers in the draft. I mean, if you have Odunze as the number 3, the top 3 just went. So I think Brock Bowers here at 10 for fantasy purposes, the sky is the limit. I mean, the thing with tight ends is they usually take a long time to develop. They're pretty much the longest developing position in the NFL, just because they have to do so much. They have to block, they have to catch. They need to know a lot more than just a regular receiver. And he's not going to just be a regular tight end. Last year kind of proved it that I think we've kind of hit a golden era a little bit of tight ends, and I think he's going to be the next up and coming tight end. And Aaron Rodgers loves his tight ends. So he's going to see a ton of touchdowns at the goal line if he goes to New York, and I'm excited for this landing spot a lot.
Yeah, Sam Laporta definitely debunked the rookie tight end struggles last season, like you said. Brock Bowers is just, I think, the perfect fit here. I love the pick.
Matt, you were
all right. So the Giants traded down with my Vikings. Vikings got Drake May at 6. The Giants are now in a position at 11 to address several needs. Really, anything. Take your pick. Man, when I look at this Giants offense, you bring in Drew Lock. He could end up being the QB1 after all is said and done. You never know. But I was Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, Hodgins. Like, these are just guys. So with the current wide receiver class already kind of flying off the board, I think it continues here. Really just take your pick of the litter, whether it's Troy Franklin out of Oregon. I like how he profiled down the stretch for the Ducks. Brian Thomas was the 2 at LSU, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, and then Keon Coleman. Those are kind of the top 4 guys staring at us. And then I know Pete's a huge Roman Wilson fan. We'll see if he would wind up going this high, but I think the Giants want to shore up that position as much as they can. So I think they go with Troy Franklin out of Oregon. He was a stat machine for the Ducks last season, and just a great all around talent when it comes to being a dominant wide receiver one on a team that really needs it. Sure, there's going to be a learning curve, and he's a rookie, but I don't think the Giants can afford to ignore wide receiver. I mean, maybe they do for the first pick, but here with so many good guys available, I think that they do bite on at least one of them. And I'm going Franklin for that pick.
Yeah, I'm curious too, Matt. When it comes to Franklin, do you have him higher than Brian Thomas Jr. and Adonai Mitchell? Like, do you project him to be better, or do you think he's a better fit there? I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are compared to the other guys on the board.
Yeah, it's really difficult for me to even give a good take on that, just because I don't know if any of these guys are going to succeed in New York based on what Dable is a phenomenal coach, and maybe they'll be able to scheme something up for these guys to get open. But it's all predicated, of course, on if Daniel Jones can kind of get going a little bit. But yeah, Adonai Mitchell, I liked him a lot. I thought, is it Xavier Worthy? Was he the other wide receiver there in Texas?
Yeah.
I liked him more.
Speedster,
yeah.
I was a bigger fan of him, so that's kind of why I faded Mitchell at this spot. Thomas,
Of course,
definitely a dog. I liked him quite a bit, and obviously he helped Jaden Daniels win the Heisman, him and Neighbors. So it was kind of between Thomas and Franklin here. I just liked what Franklin offered more in terms of just overall, like the prototype, and it was a close call, but to me, I don't have really any one specific thing that made him jump out over those other guys. But like I said, it was Xavier Worthy to me was the more alluring wide receiver out of Texas. So it kind of just put Mitchell to the side a little bit. But the Oregon was just pass dominant, and I mean, they're going to need to find ways to throw the football this season without Saquon Barkley, of course. So I think that Franklin could be that target hog that can handle that type of workload.
Yeah, no doubt.
I am up with the Denver Broncos, and I can see Sean Payton going defense here. A lot of good edge rushers. I can also see him pulling a trigger on maybe like a Bo Nix, because they're the Raiders picked right after Denver. I like their quarterbacks more because they have Gardner Minshew. All we have in Denver, we have Stidham, we have DiNucci. I think there's a greater need for a quarterback on the Denver Broncos, and I do think that is going to force Sean Payton's hand a little bit here. Again, I can see pass rusher. I do think they would pass that receiver with all these guys flying off the board, even though that is a need for them. So I think they're going to go quarterback because, Sean Payton, he's an offensive guy. He's not going to have much of an offense with that current quarterback room.
Yeah, I agree. As a Broncos fan, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense to go quarterback. Which quarterback are you taking?
I'm going Bo Nix.
You're taking Nix. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think he's the favorite to go to Denver. So, I mean, in terms of the sports books, and they don't like losing money. So, I think it's a safe pick for Denver. I wouldn't even say it's a safe pick because it's definitely a reach, but I mean, you could say JJ McCarthy's a reach at this point, but in this NFL, these guys that you try to develop, they don't last until the second round because teams are just desperate. So I will jump up to the Raiders on the next pick. So really, I mean, the only quarterback left worth taking would be Michael Penix Jr. To be quite honest with you, I am not super high on Penix. I'm not going to go quarterback here. Not going to go running back, which Pro Football Focus has as their second need. I think their offensive line got better last year. I'm actually going to go. It's tough, but I think I'm going to go interior defensive line, and I'm going to go with Byron Murphy. Sorry. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah that came out this week talking about Byron Murphy, and he's just a guy that Seems like in circles and a lot of GMs, and just from what he's heard, Byron Murphy sounds like he's sneaking up the board a lot, a lot more. And I could see them going defense. They want to play tough football. They want to run the ball, and the trenches is the way to do it. And I think Antonio Pierce wants to beef that up. So.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, Gardner Minshew, he won a lot of games with the Colts, and he has a lot of experience where I do think he can kind of weather the storm for the Raiders.
Yeah, I agree.
Matt, you are up with New Orleans.
Yeah. I think Pete nailed this one on the head the other time we were drafting, just talking about how New Orleans is just one of these teams, man. They just pound the interior on either side of the line of scrimmage. Kind of seems to be their blueprint. Somehow they retained Dennis Allen as the head coach. Not sure how that is still a thing, but here we are. Yeah, a variety of directions to go here once again. This is an interesting choice here. I think based off of need, we could get a really solid tackle out of the Pac-12. There's two of them, whether it's Fuaga or Fautaunu. I'm assuming that is how those pronunciations are made, but if I butcher that, I apologize. But yeah, I'm just going to take the top guy off the board here. Don't have a lot of experience watching either of these guys perform. This Pac-12 late night games really, just put a damper here on me watching that. But yeah, I'm gonna go O-line. I see the comments saying, "Dear God," about the Nola pick with offensive line. But here's the thing, man. Like, you're going to need Derek Carr to not be on his back, and he has weapons. Like, he has Olave, he has Kamara. So to me, to go wide receiver doesn't really make a lot of sense here. Maybe they would focus on the defensive line. But, I'm just going to take the top tackle off the board here with Fuaga out of Oregon State. Seems to be a versatile player as well. You can shift him around the interior if needed. But, yeah, you're looking at the O-line there in New Orleans. I mean, not a lot of standout names here. And these guys are a little long in the tooth. Trevor Penning, left tackle. He had some good, some bad games. But, yeah, a lot of veterans. And I think that they need to boost that front because they love pounding the rock in New Orleans with Kamara. We all know that the dink and dunk is part of their DNA. They got rid of Carmichael, bringing in Kubiak, so maybe it'll look a little bit different. But, okay. So now he's talking about he loves the pick. Okay, I thought he was hating on the pick. But either way, O-line definitely needs address here from what I'm seeing in New Orleans. I don't know how you guys feel about the pick, but not sexy whenever you take a lineman this early in the draft. People want to see the skill players fly off the board, but you got to draft logically and practically. So I think either of these guys out of the Pac-12 will do just fine.
I am on the clock with the Indianapolis Colts, and I see a lot of mock drafts with Bowers going here. And if Bowers was to fall, I do see Indianapolis as a really good landing spot, but I do think he's going to end up with the Jets as we've been mocking him there. Now, the Colts, this is a team that could go wide receiver, right? Like, I don't love the wide receiver room outside of Michael Pittman. I like Downs. I like Pierce. Tight ends need a lot of work. But this is going to be a team that runs the football first and I think opens up the pass, afterwards. So I'm going to go with a rumor, right? Because the Colts, they were reportedly in on L'Jarius Sneed. That did not happen, but I do think there's a need in their defensive backfield. So I'm going to have the Indianapolis Colts actually take Cooper DeJean. Grab arguably the best cornerback off the board.
Jason Sehorn 2.0, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I like the pick. I have a really close buddy of mine who's a Colts fan, and he's same as you. He thinks it's either offensive skill weapon or D-back. I think DeJean's a good pick there. So I'm up here with Seattle. Not a super sexy pick here. Pro Football Focus says guard, center, edge, linebacker, safety. I'm going to go with Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon. We've talked about him a lot the last couple mocks. I think he fits and slides in here really well. I think he's got all pro talent, and he's a strong dude, and he's a bad MFer. So I think he's a great fit for him. I think it's a new regime, I just for some reason a lot of times these new regimes, they want to start with the trenches when they come in, and I think that's something that they focus on, considering there's a need there. So he's going to be my pick here at 16.
Matt, you're up with the Bengals.
Oh no, Jaguars.
Oh,
Yeah, Jacksonville.
Okay. Yeah, Jacksonville.
The Trevor Lawrence experience has been a roller coaster ride, 1,000,000%. But to me, you're going to have to protect the guy one way or another. So I do believe that they're going to focus on the interior of the offensive line, and Cedric Van Pran out of Georgia fits the bill, another center. So we're going to have a mini center around here, but experience, played in the best Power 5 conference in college football. So to me, you need the interior offensive line. You need some edge help, but ultimately you need to protect your superstar quarterback and give him as much time as possible. And the Jaguars were horrible at running the football last year. It was really, really tough to watch that. So, I think that taking the center here will help them out a bit. And there's plenty to choose from. But Van Pran out of Georgia winning multiple natties seems to fit the bill.
I am up with the Bengals, and offensive line, tackle, perennially seems to be a need for this football team. But with Brian Thomas slipping here, I think this is a great opportunity for Cincinnati to go ahead, take a wide receiver. They lost Tyler Boyd. There are reports that T. Higgins, he might sit out. The most recent one, he's like, oh, yeah, I see myself playing in Cincinnati. Long term, you got to pay Burrow, you got to pay Chase, you got to pay guys on defense. Like, you got a lot of contracts to shell out. And I don't know if long term T. Higgins is going to be in Cincinnati. Yeah, you play this year on a tag, you let him walk in free agency next year, and then you have Brian Thomas entering year 2. Meanwhile, you go make this current Super Bowl run with Thomas, Higgins, and Jamar Chase. So I think with the way this draft is falling out, Cincinnati makes a luxury pick here.
I mean,
it also addresses a future need.
Yeah, it'd be exciting. I think the writing's on the wall with Higgins. I think he's gonna play. I mean, the rumors came out. Yeah. He spoke to the press. I think it was yesterday, or the day before.
Yeah.
And he I don't think he expects to get extended, but he's gonna play.
Right.
And I think it's a great insurance plan, and it gives them leverage too. I think it move him at the deadline. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but if he can step up in terms of Brian Thomas Jr. and be effective, early, and they feel confident enough, it gives them every chance in the world to move him if they really wanted to and get some value back at the deadline. So
you play the year with him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tag.
Yeah, you can do that too. It gives them flexibility, though.
Yeah.
That's the point. Their hands aren't tied. If they can't come to a deal to extend him, they don't have to. They could tag him again and trade him because you can tag him twice.
Yeah.
So it gives them a lot of flexibility. But yeah, so I'm up here with the Rams on the clock. Needs wise, I mean, you got Stafford. I think he's going to be there for another few years, in my opinion. He's still balling out. But I think tackle is a pretty big need here for them. Their offensive line, it's older. You got Rob Havenstein, Kevin Dotson, who actually just got a contract there, I believe. Yeah. They've got some guys, but they nobody flashy, and they need some youth at that position. You got 3 guys here. You even got 4. I'm gonna go with just the fun pick here. I'm gonna go with Amarius Mims. Absolute freak, 6'7" tackle. If he can stay healthy, it would not surprise me if he's the best tackle in this class. He's projected as like the 6th tackle on the board right now. But that's just because of the risks with health. But he is a savage. And he would be an awesome signing. Awesome pick for this team and this scheme.
Matt, you are on the clock with Pittsburgh.
I mean, let me just preface this by saying Pittsburgh, I think we can all agree, has been one of the more intriguing teams in free agency with both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields heading there. We're leaving them with Kenny Pickett, the guy I tried to defend for so long, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I think that Pittsburgh is definitely in a unique situation here where they do need to take really a variety of positions along the offensive line, but you could also go and focus on defense, specifically at cornerback. So I do think that when all is said and done, they will look at Mike Tomlin is a defensive guy after all. So Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, not far from Pittsburgh. He's arguably the top cornerback other than Dijon. So I think that that's kind of where Pittsburgh's going to set their focus on. But they could go offensive line too. So I kind of went back and forth here with this pick, but I think ultimately they'll shore up the secondary, which kind of got toasted at times last season.
I am up with Miami, and my narrative anytime I'm doing a mock draft is you got to replenish that defense. You got to replace Wilkins, and they're in an awesome spot right now. A lot of good edge rushers still available, and I'm going to have Miami take Jared Verse. That offense is going to be what it is, but you really got to be able to play defense. That's what ultimately hurt the Dolphins down the stretch. They had, 6 or 8 defensive guys down in the playoffs against Kansas City. You need to get younger. You need to get cheaper. They shed a lot of money, and it starts with Jared Verse.
Yeah, I love the pick. He's my favorite edge in this class. Explosive, quick first step with with Bradley Chubb. I think it was either Achilles or ACL, and then you have the other guy Phillips who tore his Achilles at MetLife Stadium. Terrible place to play. But I think it's a great pick there. Sliding into the Eagles pick at 22. I'm going to go defense here as well. I think the beauty of this draft is there's so much offensive talent that's just going to push defensive players that in normal drafts would be taken higher. But because the need on offense and there's just so much talent, some really awesome blue chip players are getting pushed down. I think cornerback is the glaring need here. I'm not going to take a linebacker in the first round this high. Something I just don't believe in, especially if it's off ball. I'm going to go with corner here. It's tough. You have Terrion Arnold, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, you have Nate Wiggins. Those are the 3 that you're looking at. I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Really like him. Like his burst, his quickness. He's sticky. And I think he fits well in that Eagles defense that really just needs a playmaker on that side of the ball.
You're going Arnold?
I am.
Okay. Matt, you are up with the Giants.
Back to the Giants again. So the Giants went with Troy Franklin, first pick that I made for him. Like I said, the Giants, they are also one of the worst offensive line units in football. And we all know it starts in the trenches if you want to win meaningful games. So quite a variety of positions to explore here. I mean, as much as I'm bagging on their offensive line, Andrew Thomas, when he is healthy, is one of the better tackles in the league. But it's just the health concerns have definitely held him back. They traded for Runyon out of Green Bay, left guard, Aaron Stinney out of Tampa Bay. Even got a right tackle as well from Vegas. So they're trying their best, but I don't think that's going to be enough to really make a meaningful impact. So I'm going to go with Fatanu out of Washington as the next tackle taken off the board to help Daniel Jones out.
Nice. I like the pick. Side note, Runyon actually went to high school with my buddy Mike D'Angelo. They both played football at St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia. Yeah, so connection there.
Well, John Runyon played.
I know, obviously. and DeAndre Swift was on his team in high school as well. They played together. Yeah, I mean they're just a powerhouse offensive. A powerhouse high school. So
my wife and brother-in-law, they went to school with, or she went to school with Noshawn Moreno.
Yeah, well, Noshawn went to the high school. Yeah, he was at the high school across from us. We weren't rivals. Yeah, that No Sean was in a group in Jersey. We do group 1, group 2, group
Yeah.
3, group 4, group 5. I think they were group 3, group 4, which is a little bit bigger of a school. It's usually about 1,500 students or more. So, yeah. But yeah, all right. So yeah, that's the pick for you, Matt, and then Anthony,
Yeah.
you're on the clock.
So I'm on the clock with my Cowboys, and they signed Royce Freeman, right? Like what a running back room they have right now. And in our first mock, I had them taking a running back. I just don't know if a running back is worthy of a first round pick, even if it's the 24th pick overall, which is, borderline second round pick at this point. All the elite guys are off the board. I think Dallas is going to do a Dallas thing and rebuild their offensive line after losing Biotish and Zach Martin's getting older. Tyron Smith is now with the New York Football Jets. And I'm going to have Dallas take the best tackle on the board, who I believe is Latham out of J.C. Latham out of Alabama. And by taking a tackle, I've said this many times, you got Tyler Smith, you can kick him back to guard. He can play two positions. He started two positions last season. He opened the year interior at guard. And then when Tyron went down, it forced him outside to tackle. So I think you can make a move like this and really start rejuvenating this aging offensive line.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think offensive line makes a ton of sense. It's such a Dallas move. There's so many teams, Steelers, you have the Saints. Like, there's certain teams that just feel like, and it could just be because the regime has been there for so long, but there's certain teams where it just feels like
Yeah.
they do the same thing. And they're super predictable in what they're going to do. I think it makes a ton of sense for them, though. All right.
Tampa.
So, what'd you say?
Tampa's on the clock.
No,
It's Green Bay. I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. I'm always pick late.
I mean, I know you got mouth surgery, but you may need to get eye surgery.
I'm getting old.
Next.
I am getting old.
But all right, cool. So I got the Packers on the clock here. I think for the Packers, you could go a couple different ways. Offensive line wise, they were actually pretty solid. So I'm not going to go in that direction like I thought I would consider. I'm going to go with the interior defensive line, and I'm going to go with Zerzan Newton. Jerzan Newton. I think I mispronounced that last time as well.
Me too.
Yeah, I think that happened last time. But yeah, I mean, he's Pro Football Focus has him the 11th ranked player on the board. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try to convince you that I understand the Packers situation on the defensive line. But it's a need based on what Pro Football Focus says. And I know Newton is a pretty touted and well thought player in circles based on what I'm reading mock draft wise from the big heads. So I'm going to take Newton here for them, and we'll roll right into the next pick with the Bucks.
Matt, that's you.
Yeah, the Bucks. I mean, even with all the production that Rachaad White gave us in fantasy football last year, they're still saying running back is the most pressing need on the team. That's interesting to me. I will pass on running back as the Buccaneers GM. Looking maybe at one of these tight ends that are still lingering around, but nothing great there. And there's a lot of all three levels of the defense need to be addressed as well. So I believe we saw a linebacker, what was it, Campbell out of Iowa, go in the first round last year. Typically, you don't see him go that early, but that could be a position now that I know that Anthony is very much bearish on the Devin. Was it Devin White that just came to Philly? So that would be the need that they're filling there. I think that you can call this a homer pick all you want, but this guy wrecked skulls all season long, did it for 3 years, just captaining the defense at Ohio State. Tommy Eichenberg goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, give them some of that physicality that they need on the other side of the football, because let's face it, the Buccaneers for so long had a great defense, and now it's kind of reverted to their offense can score, but the defense just gets absolutely lit up. And Could have gone with a defensive back here because they need help there as well. But linebacker, it's not a position that's as glorified as it once was, but it's definitely still necessary if you want to be able to drop guys into coverage and also make the big plays at the line of scrimmage. So Eichenberg can cover all those bases, and I think it's a decent pick here.
I am on the clock with Arizona. You already got your wide receiver, obviously Harrison earlier. And I think with this second pick, they either trade it or they're going to go defense. And their biggest needs on defense, you need an edge rusher, you need a cornerback. And I'm going back and forth here because I kind of like Kool-Aid McKinstry to Arizona. And I also like Latu to Arizona. I'm going to say their bigger need is probably at the defensive back. So I'm going to have them go with Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama.
Love it.
Great name. I know it's his nickname, but still pretty sweet.
Cool. Well, I will take the Bills. It's wide receiver, guys. Unless they do something surprising on draft night, maybe they trade for Cortland Sutton. I wouldn't surprise me. They could use a big body receiver there to go with Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel. But for me, it's tough. There's two guys that stick out here. I want a big body receiver that can stretch the field. You can go Adonai Mitchell, or I could get a little weird and I could go with Ricky Pearsall. I'm not going to take Ricky Pearsall this high, though I think he would really fit what they need, but I'm going to go with Adonai Mitchell. He's a guy, he's got a lot of fluidity at his size, which kind of just makes him a nightmare to cover. He's very quick. He gets into the end zone. He's just the machine for getting in there and scoring. I think he'd be a great fit for what they're looking for. Stretch the field. It puts a lot of stress on the defense at 6'4". So I'm going to take him to give Josh Allen a new weapon here.
Matt, you're up with Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit, one of the more run-heavy teams in the league. We saw that between Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in his rookie season, they were just trading blows and churning out production. So you're going to need a guy that can continue to have that physicality, that streak to him. And Detroit has a great offensive line. So, but they are not young. That's the problem. Ragnow, the center, is a beast. But Decker, drafted first round 2016. Penei Sewell, of course, the rising talent at the right tackle. And they just traded for Zeitler, too. So that's nice. But I think
another guy is aging.
Left guard Graham Glasgow, and Ragnow, as good as he isn't getting any younger, and he is dealing with a lot of injuries. So I think they either go draft Ragnow's replacement, maybe they get a guard. There's tons of options still here on the board, but Zach Zinter out of Michigan, he had an injury, cut his season short, so he didn't get to enjoy the Natty. But this guy is an absolute force, just a bully in the trenches. So I think that's exactly Dan Campbell's DNA. And this will keep him home, just like Aiden Hutchinson stayed home in his native state. Zinter doesn't have to go far once he's selected by the Lions here.
I am up with Baltimore, and I do think there's Ladd McConkey's still on the board, but they can go defense. There's so many different directions I see for Baltimore. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull a trade here, and I'm going to link Penix to the Raiders. I don't love, obviously, but I like that Raiders quarterback room. I think picking way earlier in the draft, that was too high for Penix. But there's going to be a team, if Penix falls this far in the draft, that they're going to, whether it's the Giants or the Raiders, they're going to say, okay, we got to pull the trigger. There's a couple of teams back here, whether it's Kansas City, Philly, Baltimore, maybe San Francisco, they're going to be willing to move and collect some draft assets. And I think the Raiders are going to be that team that trades up for Penix.
I mean, Penix totally boosted his draft stock in that playoff, particularly against Texas, of course. The guy just throws it on a rope, very accurate. There's people are all over the place on whether they think he's going to pan out in the league. I know Pete's kind of on the lower end of that, based on what he gave us briefly, but don't mind the pick here. They definitely Gardner Minshew, the Mississippi Mudflap. He's a fun story. He's a good time. But yeah, I think Penix ultimately could benefit sitting behind Minshew. And this is a Raiders team that's going to be smash mouth anyways. We already know their identities. So I think that this could absolutely be plausible on draft night.
Yeah, I could see it. He feels like an Antonio Pierce guy. All right, so I'm up with the 49ers. Look, I cannot allow this mock draft to finish with Latu not picked. I don't necessarily know if it's a need. I mean, hey, look, they did trade for Chase Young. They clearly thought that
Free
it was
agent.
worth right. I'm saying though, they clearly traded for him last season. They clearly felt like edge was a need for them. And though Pro Football Focus doesn't think it's a need, I'm going to draft him there anyway because Chase Young is now gone. And I think they're going to need to fill that position. And when you're a team that's 30, 31, 32, these are all luxury picks at this point. Most of your roster is set, and Latu, getting him this late in the first round when some may think he might be the first edge to go off the board, and it's really hard to kind of gauge where teams will take him because of health, but I'm going to take him at the 31st spot, and I hope that makes our buddy Mike Hoff happy when he sees this, if he is tuning in. And don't worry, we did not trade Brandon Ayuk in this mock draft. I just want to make sure that he knows that.
Matt, finish us up with Kansas City.
Is Kansas City going to go with the skill player, or are they going to build just a force field around Mahomes? Because was it Robinson? I'm blanking on his name. The guy that continuously underperformed and had all those Juwan Taylor. Sorry, not Robinson.
Juwan Taylor.
So are they going to look towards moving off of Taylor perhaps and getting a younger, more surefire thing? Or are they going to look at receiver, which we all know that despite winning the Super Bowl, it was not an easy path to have Mahomes produce due to the fact that there were so few options. So you know what? I think I'm going to have some fun here. We're going to continue to go to the SEC. We're going skill player. This guy, I don't know if you watched him, the Lad McConkey. He burned DBs in the SEC. He was plagued by injuries a little bit, so he kind of popped in and out. But yeah, McConkey to me is a steal here for the Chiefs, who desperately need a guy that can provide that explosiveness for them.
Yeah, I don't hate it. They can go receiver, they can go corner, they can go offensive tackle. So I do think it's going to be one of those. Me, I'm more boring. I would have probably went corner or offensive tackle, but I can certainly see the need at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to speculate, but who really knows what's going to happen with Rice? And Marquise Brown's only on a 1-year deal, so
Often injured.
And often injured. So they could even if Marquise Brown was healthy and Rice didn't get suspended at all, I'd still say that the wide receiver is still a need for them. So,
yeah, and King of Snipe saying that they go Xavier Worthy. I don't hate that either. Big speed weapon for Mahomes.
Yeah.
But we are going to wrap it up. This is our third mock draft. We will do one more next week, which is, I believe, draft week. It's coming up real quick. And then we have the real thing, which is going to be really exciting. We can see how this actually is going to play out. But this was another great show, guys, for Pete, Matt, and myself. This is the Faceoff Sports Network. If you want to win, you have to tune in. We'll see you on Friday.